Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. The iconic blues rock band Canned Heat hits Rams Head in Annapolis, Maryland on Monday, September 19th. I spoke to longtime drummer Adolfo Fito de la Parra about his journey from Mexico City to Woodstock with timeless hits ranging from Going Up the Country to Let's Work Together. Hey, Adolfo, aka Fito de la Parra. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP.
Thanks for your interest too. It's a pleasure.
Now we're talking, of course, you are the drummer, current band leader of the iconic band Canned Heat. It's going to be rocking Rams Head in Annapolis on Monday, September 19th. What all do we got in this show? I assume it's all the classic hits, people that grew up with your music and now they bringing their kids? Is it like multiple generations showing up to this thing?
Yeah, it usually happens that way. Sometimes it's parents and kids and even grandparents. It is awesome. Yeah, it is great. And then sometimes it's just kids by themselves. A lot of this younger generation that sort of yearn for the Woodstock era, and they yearn to be living on that era, and they kind of show up at the gigs of bands like myself, like ourselves. It's really amazing sometimes to find 17, 18-year-olds dressed up like hippies and stuff, and they come and say, we wish we were living in that era.
We were born in the wrong time. Take us back. Awesome.
Well, I don't know, you sound pretty young to me, but maybe some of your generation feel that way, but that's just a matter of choice.
Yeah, I turned 38 next month, so I'm relatively young, but I'm pushing 40. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm sort of in the middle. But I love music from that era. It's definitely I really appreciate it. That's why I wanted to have you on. Canned Heat is such a cool sound. Well, before I want to dive into some of the bigger songs and stuff, but before that, remind us who all's in the current lineup with you now, and do the new guys have catchy nicknames like the classic lineup used to have?
Well, not nicknames, but I have a bunch of great guys, and the band is sounding very good, and we're getting some great reactions from the people. The current lineup has Jimmy Vivino, who's our latest addition. He was the band leader for the Conan O'Brien show for the past 10 years.
That's awesome.
You might have seen him. The guy with the hat and the beard.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Great guitar player and singer, and I'm very happy to have him in the band now. And we also have, my frontman, Dale Spalding, who's been in the band for 15 years now. That makes him almost an original. And we also have Rick Reed on the bass, who's has great credentials. He's played just with everybody there is anybody in the blues world. So I have a pretty good band, and I think we're going to be doing good on this tour coming.
Awesome. Now, yeah, I just was curious if there were any nicknames, because I always love reading, that classic lineup. Of course, it was Bob the Bear, Height, Alan Blind Al Wilson, and Larry the Mole Taylor. You were Fito.
It's Adolfito. It's come from Latin America. Anybody called Adolfo or Rudolfo, they are calling Fito, like Adolfito or Rodolfito.
So where in Latin
America? Richard, I'm from Mexico City.
So you grew up in Mexico City. All right. How did you make your way up and meet all the guys? Because I guess Canned Heat formed in LA in what, 65, something like that. So how did you make your way up to meet the guys?
I joined Canned Heat in October of 1967. They've been around already for about a year and a half. And I came to the US, I was a young guy. I married an American girl, and I wanted to play rhythm and blues music. That was my thing. I wanted to experiment and to learn more about this kind of music that conquered me. And while I was in Mexico City, I already been playing with several bands. I was in many of the most popular bands of Latin America. So I knew already about having hit records and having, for the popularity and all that stuff. What really turned me on and got me into the US was when I discovered blues music and rhythm and blues. And that was my main thing. I wanted to come here and play that music and learn more about it. I never I never expected to find a bunch of people like the guys in Canned Heat. They were very much like me. They were into that kind of music, and they were scholars. They were record collectors and musicologists, and we just did it. We got together and we liked the same kind of music, and we wanted to pass that same message.
Awesome. Yeah. And I mean, you said that were musicologists and collectors of blues records and stuff. And it makes sense. You really can see that on I guess, what is it? The self-titled debut album, Canned Heat, because a lot of those, actually, maybe almost all of them probably are reworkings of old classic, iconic blues riffs and stuff. I think, wasn't Rolling and Tumbling, which was the breakthrough hit in '67. I guess you had joined just in time for that. What was that, an old Muddy Waters riff, I think?
Yeah, of course, and it's also traditional Mississippi blues song. Some of these songs are so old that even if there is an author claim, nobody really knows where they
Right.
really came from. Like some of the lyrics of "On the Road Again," which originally were, of course, claimed by Floyd Jones, and then by Alan, but it is really traditional music that it goes way back, and it's very hard to find who was actually the very first person that did it, because there was no recordings in those times.
Yeah, absolutely. But there were some recordings of you all doing it on some documentaries and stuff. I know when you were doing Rolling and Tumbling, it really got captured, for all time, in that Monterey Pop documentary, D.A. Pennebaker, the legendary filmmaker.
Yeah,
I'm a movie guy myself,
yeah,
so
that was that. Yeah, that's a great festival, the Monterey Pop Festival. That was a little bit before I joined. I joined right after Monterey. I joined in October of that year.
Gotcha. Well,
So,
did the guys
so
from the
I
band have
was
any good? Did they at least tell you, the original members tell you at least some good stories of that fest?
about the fest. They talk about it sometimes. Not much to tell. I mean, they were very happy, and I was envious that I didn't get to see Otis Redding that was playing there with them.
Wow.
The other acts that they alternated with, we did alternate with later. Including Hendrix and Janis Joplin and Cream and many others. But I didn't get to see Otis Redding live, and that would have been great. That would have been a privilege to be at the Monterey Pop Festival and see Otis Redding. I missed that one.
Yeah, but like you said, you got to play on with a lot of the other ones for sure. So yeah, I guess what Otis Redding died that December, right? At the end of '67. So yeah, you just missed him.
Yes, it is.
You just missed them. All right, cool. Well, moving ahead, I know you mentioned "On the Road Again" earlier, not to be confused with the Willie Nelson song, but this one is just I guess it was off of Boogie with Canned Heat, the second album. Talk about how, and so you're there for this one, I guess, I assume. So
yeah, for that one, I played those. Yes, I
yeah,
recorded a Boogie with Ken.
for sure. So talk about how some of the other songs had. There was usually that gritty voice that Bob had, but on this one, I believe you switched over to Alan Wilson's doing some higher
Well,
pitched falsetto, right?
those were the two styles that Canned Heat was known for. I mean, the rowdy blues singer, blues shouter, a la Big Joe Turner style. That was Bob Haidt, okay, the big bear, who sang, and the big party guy and the big front man. And then it was also the most sophisticated and more softer kind of blues that Alan Wilson brought into the fray. The idea of doing "On the Road Again," of course, as I said, is traditional Mississippi blues, originally claimed by Floyd Jones, but I don't know for sure if he was the original writer. Alan came with the idea of doing that and do a musical part reminiscent of John Lee Hooker's style, that part of the boogie type of thing that John Lee Hooker did, and add a tempura instrument like the Indian drone that they use for Indian music. This tempura is like a sitar, but it holds one note all the time. That's that note that you hear throughout the record. That it's part of the hypnotic effect of the drone. The
That was a
drone
pretty
type.
good impression right there.
Yes, it is. Hey, sometimes I had to do it on the microphone when we couldn't get a tape to play that thing. So yeah, that's it. That to get that hypnotic effect and that drone music, which is also part of the John Lee Hooker influence on Canned Heat's music.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. And then, yeah, you mentioned the two, you were talking about the two styles, sort of the big bear party guy of Bob, and then the Alan Wilson doing the falsetto kind of songs going back and forth. I guess Alan's style wound up on Going Up the Country, which is, it's, man, I'm telling you that song you'll still hear played on, commercials and stuff on TV today. I'm telling you, any younger listeners out there, if you think you don't know it, I mean, I promise you do. Going Up the Country, baby, do you want to go? Any stories of putting that one together, in studio? Any good memories of being there on the doorstep of history?
I do remember that we already had one hit record, which was something that we never expected. Being a blues band, and in those times, blues was really not that popular. It was not, mainstream at all. So we had On the Road Again and became a hit record, and it was amazing. We were like, we couldn't believe it. It actually broke by itself. And so one time we're rehearsing, and Alan shows up and starts playing this little lick with a guitar, and shows us a set of lyrics that he put to it. And, he comes and says, I got inspired by Henry Thomas, the blues guy from Texas, who did this song called Going Down Home or Going Down South, something like that. So he put the lyrics, going up the country, baby, don't you want to go? Going up the country, baby, don't you want to go? The moment we heard the first 1 minute of the song with the guitar lick and the words, I remember Larry Taylor and I looked at each other and said, this is a hit record, no question about it. And it became a hit record. It became a very important song, and also became the theme of the Woodstock Festival. When you think about Woodstock, you always think of Going Up the Country. Baby, don't you want to go? Going up the country from New York to the Catskill Mountains.
Yeah.
To the farm, to Max Jasger's farm, where the festival was happening.
Wow, it kind of symbolizes the whole festival in a way. Well, that's great.
That's
yeah,
right. You visualize all those people going up the country. They're going.
Up the country.
I say that again because many people come and ask sometimes, why don't you guys do that song Going Down the Country? And I have to correct them and say it is going up the country. Even Paul McCartney just sang a few parts of that song on the latest documentary on the Beatles. He actually honored us by singing some Canned Heat stuff on the documentary. I don't know if you've seen it, the latest documentary on
one
the Beatles.
That like the one that just came out on Disney Plus.
Yeah, that's the one. But he's also singing it as Going Down the Country. Baby, don't you want to go? So if you ever get to talk to Paul, tell him that it's going up the country, not going down the country.
We'll say, Sir Paul, Fido has an issue with the way you're saying it.
I'm very grateful that he actually mentioned us and that he was singing our song. That's great. I mean, the Beatles singing awesome. Canned Heat, that's wonderful.
That's great.
But he did say going down the country.
It's up, not down. Well, yeah, what goes up must come down or something like that. But awesome. Well, tell me a little bit more about, I mean, you sort of segued into it, but Woodstock, I mean, the most iconic music festival ever. And I mean, youngins like me have only been able to appreciate it with those legendary, awesome documentaries, and We Must Be in Heaven, man, all that great stuff. But where did you play? I guess Canned Heat was what, towards the end of day 2, right before Mountain and Grateful Dead, CCR?
Yeah. We were headlining on Saturday. That's the second day, which is probably the heaviest day of the 3. The heaviest bands, I would say. Yes, we were headlining on Saturday, and we finally were able to, we actually hijacked a helicopter from the press. Bob Hyde went and pulled those guys from the press out of the helicopter. They were already in the helicopter, and we ran towards them and pulled them out and took over. And we hijacked the helicopter and we arrived around 4 o'clock or so. And then I remember we see our truck with our roadies right by the stage too. They also made it. They drove 12 hours from New York to Woodstock. It normally will take 2 or 3 hours, but because of the festival and the roads being congested, these guys had to move cars out of the road, and with the help of the fans and people there, they managed to get the truck through and made it to the stage. At the same time we were arriving on the helicopter, I remember the Chipmunk, the stage manager in Woodstock, comes to our manager and says, "Can you guys play now?" And Skip looks around and says, "This is a great time to play. We always believe that when the sun is setting, it's actually the best time to play." And that's what it was happening. So we got a great time factor there. And we started there and we organized our instruments and we played that great afternoon. We had a great, good performance and an excellent response from the audience. It was amazing to hear that response, that applause. At the end of the boogie, we call it the Woodstock boogie. You can hear it on the record. It's amazing. I don't know if any other band had as big a response as we did that time.
Oh, we invite everybody to go look it up on YouTube if you can. The Woodstock Boogie Canned Heat performance. It is well, you'll recognize sort of that boogie riff, like you're saying. I guess like you said, it's like an old John Lee Hooker boogie chillin' or something. Or you might even you've heard that. I mean, ZZ Top, LaGrange. I mean, a lot of bands have done the similar riff. But man, that's the crowd reaction, and like you're saying, the fact that it was during sunset, that's just got to be a magical memory in your brain forever, man. That's amazing.
It was a wonderful experience.
Did you, other than you actually getting those memories of when you're actually on stage, did you have a chance to get to watch any of those great other artists on any of the other days?
I got to talk to some of the guys from the Santana band, which they were just starting. They were introducing their first record at the time. They were not famous at all.
Yeah.
They were just introducing their act and their record. So I got to talk to Chepito Arias, who is Latin American, and we spoke a little bit of Spanish, and we both felt very happy to be there. But I didn't get to see any other bands. Only the band that was on before us was the Incredible String Band. And it was a very soft band from England. They play, I guess, traditional English, music from the past, from historical times. And to follow them was very easy for us because we were much more intense and loud and just a heavy band. That's all. We were heavier. And so that's also had to do with the reaction from the audience. They all of a sudden woke up, with the Canned Heat.
Yeah, you woke them up all right. Well, maybe time for one more. My listeners will kill me if we don't get some tidbits on "Let's Work Together." I guess clearly Bob Hite back on the vocals with that grovelly voice.
That was the Bears' hit. That was Bob Hite's hit, and that's again the two styles of the band. The Alan Wilson style is the falsetto, softer kind, the soft side of the blues, and Bob Hite was the boogie side of the blues. Mm-hmm. The happy side, the up side of the blues. Let's Work Together was originally written by Wilbur Harrison, the same guy that wrote Kansas City. We heard the original song and we really liked it, but we decided not to do anything with it until to see what happens with the original, with Wilbur's version. So a couple of months went by and nothing happened. The song sort of disappeared. No charts, no radio play, no nothing. And that's when Bob said, in one of his parties that he used to have record playing parties all the time in his house. One of those parties, he plays the record a couple of times and says, "This is a great song. It's a great message. We should redo it and do it our style." So we booked the session and we did it. And it came out almost magical. It was like a first or second take. I mean, there was no overdubs, no reruns, no nothing. We just did it there live, and it came out great. It's a very great sound, great mix, and the message is still very much relevant today. And a lot of people are using it for commercials too, and for movies and for many other things. So it's just good to have a impact on the culture.
Well, tell me, but yeah, tell me real quick a little more about that message. You know, together we stand, divided we fall. I mean, let's work together. I mean, that really does still works.
That's right. I mean, look what's happening with our country, with the politics and all that. I mean, for example, they use that song in the parliament in Australia. So there you go. Let's
play
work
it
together.
in parliament.
In parliament, yeah, they use it as a theme to start working.
I thought they'd be playing George Clinton in parliament.
No. This is another parliament.
Actual parliament.
So there it is. I've heard it also in a bank commercial. I mean, that was amazing. A bank commercial talking about let's work together. And of course, in several movies,
Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump's the one I think of when they're in they're in with the New Year's party with Lieutenant Dan, and she tastes like cigarettes. That whole thing.
They are doing let's work together. That's right. But it's been in many other movies too. I cannot mention them right now. You're out of my memory, but.
What do you think when you're sitting in a movie theater watching a Forrest Gump or whatever movie it's in? When all of a sudden you hear that iconic song come on, do you go, add another one to our and chalk up another one for Candy?
I feel very proud and very happy that the song is there. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling.
Oh yeah. I mean, a director they have all these songs that they can choose from, and they pluck your song to capture that time, in a period piece sort of thing, and that's got to make you proud. All right, cool. Well, thanks for joining us. I mean, we've gone through a lot of the big hits, a lot of the highs. Talk about some of the lows. I mean, both people we've mentioned, Alan Wilson, of course, died young in 1970 at age 27, and then of course Bob Hite died in 1981 at age 38. I mean, how do you guys as a band, pick yourself up after stuff like that? I mean, that's losing some of the core members, and how do you keep the band going?
It has been a very hard and a very tragic band. We kind of had a dark cloud above us most of our career, and not only about the deaths of the guys, but many other things that happened to us throughout the times. But we've been able to endure it and continue playing. When Bob Hite died, we considered dropping the band and forget about it.
Right.
But we had a contract to play in Australia, and the promoter, Peter Noble, contacted me and said, find yourself another frontman and we'll back you, and the people will accept you and they will like it. Don't worry about it. I was worried that people were not going to like the band and they were not going to accept us, without our two main guys, Alan gone and Bob gone. But fortunately, the people kind of liked the Canned Heat experience, and they accepted us and they liked us. And we continued to get offers, even if Bob wasn't there and Alan wasn't there. So I kept accepting the offers and continued to do all the work for the past 40 years or so. I always left it up to the people. I always believed that the band also belongs to the fans and to the people that follow it.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Well, I'm sure all of us fans are glad that you have kept it going. I guess before we go, I'm curious. Do you said you're from Mexico City? Do you ever go down country to going down country back to where you grew? You ever go back where you grew up?
Oh yes, I do. I have family down there, and I go visit. Plus, Canned Heat is very popular in Mexico, and we play there. We play there at the end of 2019, or right before the COVID thing happened. We play there. We've been in Mexico at least 15 times. We play there many times, so we're well known there. And of course, the fact that I used to play in some of the most famous Mexican bands, so I was already known before I left Mexico, and then I come here, and join a world famous band, Canned Heat. So now in Mexico, I became more famous, and I'm very happy about that, and I hope we can get to play down there again sometime.
Oh yeah. Hey, real quick, a lot of our listeners might be curious about tell us about some of those bands that you played in when you were in Mexico before Canned Heat. If we could look, if some fans of Canned Heat maybe want to look up some of your
Oh
earlier stuff.
yeah, I'm sure you can find them on the internet. One of them was Los Hooligans, which had a gigantic hit record called Despeinada, and it was like all over Latin America. It was a gigantic record. Los Hooligans was one of them. Another band that was quite famous was Los Sinners. See, they all have the Los before.
Of
Los
course.
Sinners. And then I also played with Javier Batiz. Javier Batiz was also Carlos Santana's first guitar teacher and guitar mentor. He's the one that taught Santana how to play his first chords. So Javier also introduced Mexico to rhythm and blues music. He came from Tijuana and came to Mexico City, and I also played with him, and many other bands. But as I say, the ones I just mentioned, Los Sinners and Los Hooligans, were the most famous ones. And you can find about Javier Batiz or those two other bands in the internet. I'm sure they have pages of information there.
Oh yeah, and of course a little band called Canned Heat, which will be coming to Rams Head in Annapolis, Maryland on September 19th. So everybody get your tickets. I have you before we run. Have you ever played there before? Do you guys make it to Annapolis very often?
Well, we play in Annapolis, but I don't remember if I play in Rams Head. Maybe we have. Remember, I've been in the band for 53 years. It's hard to remember everything.
It all runs together.
Yeah, but sometimes the whole tour just seems like one thing,
Yeah.
But I have to be in the place. Once I go in there and I see the stage and all that, then my memory starts coming back and says, hey, you were here before. It is possible that we were there before, but I don't know for sure. I know we play in Annapolis before too, or in the area, in the area.
Sure, yeah, and I'm sure we've seen you throughout the DC area for sure. I guess we gotta wait and see if you get in there and you feel some deja vu, then you'll know you've played there before. Awesome.
Yeah, maybe the people that run the place will remember too. Sometimes they come to me and says, "Hey, I remember when you guys were here, 20 years ago." Oh, say great,
Jog the memory. Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, I really, really appreciate your time. I guess the final question, would be, of when you look back at the whole career, actually decades after, you're gone and I'm gone, when people look back at this era of music and all the great bands, what do you want people to remember about Canned Heat that stood out, maybe from some of your contemporaries of the time?
Well, one of the things that I think we had a lot of influence on is on the dissemination and the acceptance of blues music all over the world. We were part of the pioneering movement to make blues music palatable and accepted all over the world, especially in Europe too, and in the US. And because of bands like us and Paul Butterfield and John Mayall, I will say those are the three pioneers on white blues that turned the world on to blues music. And I think that was our contribution. If you see the situation nowadays, there are all kinds of blues festivals, there are blues societies, there is blues bands just all over the place. Some of them are not so good, some of them are great. But the main thing is that when we started, blues was not even known or accepted. And we worked really hard and kept our integrity to promote that music worldwide. And I think that's our contribution to society.
It's a great contribution it was. Well, hey, thank you so much, Fito, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Again, everyone, check out Canned Heat at Rams Head in Annapolis on September 19th. Get your tickets now. This was a pleasure talking with you. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Jason. You have a great day.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.